starts launching these raids. Well, the Meccans get angry and they start coming out against him in larger numbers. Then Muhammad starts fighting these battles. You got the Battle of Badr, which is the first battle. You got the Battle of Uhud. Then you got the Battle of the Trench. These three major battles are fought. During this time, the Jewish tribes in Medina are saying, wait a minute, we came here, or we brought him here as an arbiter, but he's just causing more and more strife. So they gradually opposed him more and more, and Muhammad gradually became more and more opposed to Jews. And you see this transposed into the Qur'an. Okay? So the question was asked earlier about the peacefulness and the violence. Islam starts off very amenable to Jews and Christians and monotheists. And during this period, we start seeing revelations shift in nature, becoming more and more antagonistic towards Jews. The last tribe of Jews that's there, Muhammad doesn't exile them, he exiled the other two. This tribe he actually executes. So 500 to 800 men were beheaded that day, and all the women and children were sold into slavery and their items were taken captive. These were the people who invited him into the city. So you have a lot of tension at this point between the Jews and the Muslims. Muhammad goes back and conquers Mecca in 630 AD. And shortly after this, Muhammad issues a battle edict against the Christians. And who are the Christians? In his eyes, they're the Romans. And so the Battle of Tabuk was the first battle where Muhammad says, okay, now we're going to start fighting the Christians. They never actually made it to that place to fight, so they never actually did engage in an offensive war against Christians, but Muhammad did sanction it, and we find that sanction in the Qur'an today, chapter 9, verse 29. That is an extremely important verse for you to remember. Chapter 9, verse 29, and we're going to take a look at it shortly. So that's a quick look at Muhammad's life. Where am I getting a lot of this information? I already told you that most of that information is found in the earliest biography of Muhammad's life, Sirat Rasulullah by Ibn Ishaq. But most Muslims, when they talk about Muhammad's life, they go to the Hadith. And if you are going to engage Muslims at all, you will hear this word, the Hadith. What are the Hadith? They are the traditional sayings of Muhammad. Often subsumed into that concept are the actions or the traditions of Muhammad called the Sunnah. So the Hadith are the sayings and the actions of Muhammad. And these are a necessary complement to the Qur'an. Hear me for a second, because we as Christians, especially Protestant Christians in the West, see sola scriptura, and we often import that upon other societies and cultures. It's not true for Islam. No Orthodox Muslim would say that the Qur'an is all they need. They would all say the Hadith are invaluable to understanding Islam. You have a small segment of Muslims called Qur'ani Muslims or Qur'an-only Muslims, and they look extremely different from every other Muslim you've seen. All Muslims say that, virtually all Muslims say that the Hadith are a necessary complement to the Qur'an. How many daily prayers were there in Islam? 5. How many are there in the Qur'an? 3. Okay. So where did the other 2 come from? Well, they're found in the Hadith. What do you pray? I said they're prescribed prayers, right? Muslims memorize them. Where are those words found? In the Hadith. What prayers do you pray beforehand, afterwards? All that's found in the Hadith. How do you live your life? How do you give your zakat? How much zakat do you give? Under what circumstances can you divorce? Can you marry? Whom should you marry? Whom's disqualified? Some of that's in the Quran, but the vast majority of that is in the Hadith. It's more than a Bill of Rights. It is basically how Muhammad lived out Islam, is the idea here. I wouldn't call it an amendment either. I would say it's an addendum, an appendix, if you will. Now the question, let me give you some examples of some books of Hadith. Different sects, and so the question in the back about the Shia, what do they believe? And remember how I said, you have some people who believe different things. It's because they believe in different books of Hadith. Not everyone believes in the same books of Hadith. Does that make sense? You have to follow me on this. So Shia, for example, they don't believe in the same books that Sunnis believe in. And some Sunnis will disagree on various books. There are some books that virtually every Sunni Muslim agrees with. And those are the 2 here. Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih al-Muslim. Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih al-Muslim. And you should write these 2 down as well. These 2 books are what most Muslims go to learn about Muhammad, to learn about Islam, if they're going to learn anything that's outside of the Quran. Extremely important. And for most Sunni Muslims, if it's found in either of these 2 books, it's as good as if it were in the Quran.